Make sure you got coffee, make sure you're snuggled up. If you want to follow along, open your Createspace in a project. Um, have Word open because that's the software I use specifically for all my books. In case you're curious who I am, I'm Valerie Willis, a fantasy romance author and aka the Accidental Guru. You can find me at willisauthor.com, and there are links to my blog. And on my blog, you can find a post with screenshots of how I do set up my Createspace books and so forth. So it's a how-to guide, or if you're just curious about the process, it's a really good insight. So, but don't be shy in the chat. Feel free to talk to me, ask me questions, hound me about stuff. Mikita likes to hound me a lot. Dudley is horribly cute. He's he's our furry coffee table, weighing in at 80 pounds and about 4 feet long and 3 feet wide. All right. Let's see. Doobie doo. Boom. Webcam. Let's make sure I can interact with this. Interact. There we go. All right. So, yeah. All right. That should work. Woot. It is 10:30, so we're gonna get this rolling. All right. I'm not going to even cover ISBN numbers. We are going to solely focus on how it is that I format all of my novels for Createspace. And hopefully, before I go any further, hopefully you guys can hear me okay, loud and clear. Otherwise, that may cause obnoxiousness. So, because I'm pretty sure. Boop-a-doo. Okay, thank you, Mikita, for double checking. All right. So when you do Createspace, you have this whole list of items that you're filling out, as you see on the screen. This is focused on the interior section, and for a basic we're talking about an 80,000 word novel. I usually default to black and white and a cream colored because I like the texture of the cream color paper. And it's a bit of a off-white, and it doesn't seem to blare at the eyes of the reader so much. One hard decision that you're going to have to make is to choose a paper size. My go-to is the 6x9 or the 5 1/4 by 8. But as you can see, they let you know these are most popular for black and white trim sizes, and then they give you a list of other industry and then even more sizes. Tonight we're going to do a 5 1/4 by 8 because that's the book size from the Cedric series. It's just small enough that it fits comfortably in most purses and book bags, but it's not too thin where it's uncomfortable to flip through over 300 pages. Oh, look at you, Ken. I choose for my young adult series, the Tattooed Angels trilogy. I decided on the 6x9 mainly because all the other books I was seeing on the shelves were about this size. I don't know why that's a trend with young adults. Whereas romances tend to be like a 5 by 8, 5 1/4 by 8 kind of size, or five. I think there's like a 5 by 7. Yeah, the 5 by 7 down there too. But I didn't want it horribly small, and I wanted to give you guys some breathing room with your thumbs. I do larger margins than normal because I want thumb space. I read a book once when I was younger, and I kept losing my page because I didn't have anywhere to put my thumbs comfortably. So I guess that's sort of what irked me. So when you select a size, the cool thing about Createspace is that you can download a blank template or formatted template. You can also see what the cost for that book size can be, and we'll flip over that so you can see what I'm talking about. As you see, it'll bounce you down all the way down here, and this is where you can put in your options and the different book sizes. A 80,000 word novel is roughly 360 pages, and you can calculate how much your manufacturer cost is going to be. Like I said, different sizes might change it depending on the page count. Is usually the page count that's going to push this number more than anything. The bigger the book, the less the page count you can usually drop down to. But the bigger the book, the more uncomfortable it becomes to read, unless you have sort of like a magazine, art book, or even a tabletop game guide. Those you can get away with a bigger size. And like I said, for the purposes of everything, we're aiming for roughly an 80,000 word novel. So we're looking at a manufacturer cost, my cost as the author, $5.17 for them. The cool thing in this section is that they can do formatting and interior designs for you as well. That's totally up to you. If this isn't your strong suit or you don't feel comfortable doing it, hire someone out. And there's just more than Createspace's services. There are plenty of freelancers, including myself, out there who charge a set price for typesetting or formatting for paperbacks and even ebooks. So don't be afraid to reach out. Now, just to show you guys the two different types here, when you download, let's see, this is the basic template. It's just a page saying, hey, this is basic, delete this text, by the way. But what it's done is it's depending on the person, this might be pre-set up, and the more important part is how the layout is set up. Now, granted, you can custom put all these margins in, but this is what helps you make sure that your document isn't going to have things. Paige says hi. Tell Paige I say hi back. So they preset your spacing for you. They set out your gutter and your outside, and you want to mirror your margins, because what we've done is we've added a bigger gapping where the pages are glued to the binding. The other thing is that you're going to see your book size reflected here and paper size. And again, this is through the whole thing. And then section starts on an odd page. And you want a header and footer, and I'll show you something very important involving them. But for the most part, you want your default to be vertical alignment. It's only in certain places that you may want to change this to center. But you have to be careful, because where it's funky and it will totally make everything else center or keep defaulting back. So I try my best not to just stick with top, because it's all about making your life easier. Now, if you had selected the formatted version, we'll enable editing so you guys can see it a little better. The formatted issue does more work for you. It sets up your pre-title page, your copyright page, and you have to remember this here is the front of the page, and then this is going to be the back of that page. So you have to sort of think and visualize this as if it's a book, and every 2 pages is 1 page, front and back. It's such a pain in the butt, but once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. So dedication's already in here. Table of contents is already placed in here. Some acknowledgement if that's what you want to do. They pre-set up a chapter and headers for yourself and help you pretty much set up an entire book. Now, the only thing that irks me about this is that they didn't quite set it to the styles. I highly recommend for your first book, or for most books, to go ahead and start with the formatted layout, because it makes sure that you don't miss anything that you're trying to make sure that you had, and it's all ready to go. You just have to paste in and tweak what you want to change. So the first thing you're going to want to do in a formatted file is to start to redefine all these styles, because if you set these up, it makes your job so much easier if you decide to change anything about it. So for instance, this is book title. So I highlight it and I right click, update title to match. This is more of a subtitle. Right click, subtitle, update the match. Copyright, and I like to italicize this because it looks a little fancier, but there is no copyright section. So it's up to you if you want to claim one of these other ones as that, or you can right click and, oh, that's right, it depends on your, let's see, you should be able to do styles, create a style with the highlighted font will match what the preview is. And so we're going to do this copyrights and hit OK. And now when we look up here, we have it. Now we're going to do another one that we'll save. I'm going to title this intro header, and as you can see, it matches. And like I said, as you start to type these in, they'll start showing up here, and of course you can tab down and up. You can also take some of these out of here if it's going to confuse you. And again, like I said, I make styles for all this. The reason why I'm making intro body and intro header is so I don't accidentally tweak it. A lot of times, as you can see, this is centered. Well, the body of my story is not centered alignment. So I don't want to accidentally crisscross things and undo my efforts. So that's pretty much how I safeguard myself from that. So this is an intro header. And you want to highlight the sections and apply these to the appropriate areas because it's not pre-assigned. Now this should be assigned as your heading 1. Update heading 1 to match selection. This is all body font. So we're going to save this as, you do either normal or you can make a new one that's called body, just as long as you stay consistent with which one you're applying. Because if you decide to change the font, the spacing, the inserts, anything at all, this is where you're going to do that at. And as you see, as I'm defining some of this, you probably saw how this shifted, which is very, 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 very obnoxious at times, because and this is why we're going through this painstaking process, because we're going to have it look more like the copyrights, but we're going to name this as a new style called header font. Oh, that's a good question, Makita. Because it's in print, I like to use a serif font. Serif font implies it has these little hooks to it. Though a lot of more recent stuff is using more like, where's the obvious one? I know I've got a ton of fonts. I passed it. Stuff like Arial is the newer font. That's a sans serif versus, as you can see here, I'll select it so we see it side by side. So when I zoom in here, so sans serif font doesn't have any hooks to it. Serif fonts do. These are more classic. This is Times Roman, I think Baskerville, Georgia, I think even Copperplate is like this, versus Arial and Gilsons, that would be this style. I have a soft spot for traditional. So traditionally in a hard copy, you want to go with a serif font to imitate that textbook quality font. I also like the fact that you can't confuse a lowercase l with an uppercase I. Yeah, they're fancy. Size of font matters a lot. The thing that kills me about this is that the default is set for 11. And though 11 is perfectly acceptable, I'm kind of like, I'd rather be at 12 to 14 depending on the story, because I want my readers to have an easier time. I also space things out a particular way, and you guys will see that in a few minutes. Oh, here comes Tim. Hi, Tim. Tim's here. Yeah, I'm pretty sure most use either size 11 and size 12. I have seen books out there with size 9 font, and it's like, you feel like you should have a magnifying glass to read it. And that's terrible. Now, I do know that if you're doing a book that you want to design for like easy reading, large print, I think the minimum for those is size 16 font, which is pretty big, but I feel like still rather small for what that's trying to achieve per se. So we'll throw that back. And like I said, pretty much your first step is to set up all your styles. Let's see, header font. Header. Because this will make life so much easier once you've defined it all. And the cool thing about headers and footers is they can link to each other. So once you fix them, they pretty much start to carry over. but I'll show you more about that in a second. Let's see. I don't know if there's a way for you to hide, Tim. Why would you want to hide? Why would you want to hide? We missed you, Tim. We've missed you. Ouch, that was my elbow. Let's see. What we do? The formatting, I will tell you what, takes a lot of time and patience. It is very meticulous. If you're a perfectionist, it will drive you crazy, but you might actually be a natural at it because of that. But it definitely is, you have to pay attention to everything. Like I said, these are all pre-set up. I could go on for days. So chapter 6 and down, I don't need to do each and every chapter, which is the glory of all this. That's the pro of doing this right. So this is set up similar to our intro stuff. So I'm still going to use heading 1. And now it's thinking. There we go. But I'm still going to use my intro body style for that. And let's fix this one. But yeah, it's meticulous as all get out. Oh, you can come to my house. What was that beeping? I don't know. I have headphones on, so if it's something beeping outside the headphones, I don't know what it is. And Tim, please come over and fold my laundry. I mean, you can't see it, but I hid a pile in the back corner, and I'm procrastinating by doing a Twitch feed. Okay, so basically, all you have to do is really define one chapter setup, maybe 2 just to get the feel for it, and you're good. So the question is, exactly why is it so important that we painstakingly define these? Couple of reasons. Let's say we already know what kind of font we want for a title. I can change it. We can do Demonic Wildlife, because this is so we're going to start one page at a time, and I'm going to work through my edits and how we can adjust this. And if you notice, as I click the different areas, you're going to notice this shifting a lot. You'll see it highlight different ones. Okay, this space. So this is the beginnings of our page. Now, if you notice, when I hit enter, it just drives this straight up and this straight down. We don't want that. We don't want that at all. It's okay to have one return between these two, but what you really want to do is you're going to go in here. You can do it too. There's several ways. The thing about Word is there's several ways. And look, I'm banging my chair into the desk. So we can either modify our subtitle, and we want to hit format and paragraph. But the faster way to get into it is by right clicking on the font that we plan on adjusting and hitting paragraph. Why paragraph? Because paragraph defines our spacing. And the nice thing about this is that we can just spam it. Let's do 108. So that worked out a little. So let's see. I need to add a style. Create a style. Title. Mini title. Make sure this is locked in. And we're going to hit paragraph and let's see what this says. If you look, there's nothing defined for spacing. I think 180 is what I like it at. So now when I highlight that top line, you'll see it has this big gray block because it's counting that as the top. Now, a cool fun thing. So let's say, and I'll shrink this so you see what I'm talking about. So here it's on one line. If I wanted it on a second line, this happens, right? Well, we want it squashed together, but because we defined it with 180 spacing, it added another 180 spacing here, which is not what we wanted. Cool trick, you hold the shift key and hit return, and you're letting it know that these two paragraphs need to be close together because they're family. So that's how you would do that. But I like it really big. Let's see. Like I said, and the same thing here, because we added that space, there's no confusing the system. So it understands that these gaps should always be here. I'm so jealous. You guys did your laundry already. Who's coming to do my laundry? And I hopefully I'm making some sort of sense. Let's see. Nope, that's too much. All right. See how, just so you know what happened. I hit return, and because it's got this first line marked as the title, all I had to do was let it know this is going to be a mini title, because I want to define, this is it. So, Demonic Anthology, Volume 1. Where is this big gap coming from? And we'll shove it in the header. And then we highlight this one and unlink it to the previous and delete. And what happens is it doesn't show up. Otherwise, if I hadn't deleted it, it shows up everywhere. So I shoved that in the header. Even though it's faded here, it's going to show up just as black as this stuff. It's just letting you know, by doing a slight transparency, it's letting you know, by the way, this is in your header. So this is where you would have to change it. And like I said, when you put a header in, it automatically connects and links these. So you have to go to the next header and unlink them. See, and this will be highlighted like this, but now it's unhighlighted. And then you just delete it, and it should undo it, because all these other ones down here are linked to this instance because you detached this from this one. It's like a weird game of caboose and train kind of concept. So you have to link and hook and unlink, and it gets kind of confusing after a while. But once you get the hang of it, it's not so bad. I promise. I can promise these things. Doopy doop. You know what? Let's do this. And this nice. Now, let's say you decided you want your name. This is either the author's name or the production's name. The same as the subtitle, and it's the only time you're going to do it. So you don't necessarily want to make another style. You highlight that line, right click, you hit paragraph, and you start adjusting. And it'll only apply it to that line, but be careful, because as you start to edit other things in this, it will undo it sometimes. So that's why it's important to go ahead and just define the styles and make sure that you don't have to constantly backtrack. So this would be the first page that my readers open up to. Looks like so. On the back of that page is our copyrights. Let's see, for example, and there's a lot of different things that you can list here, and it depends on it. Don't mention trains. Yeah. Kim's doing her working on a scary train story now. Dun dun dun. She already killed Tim off. Tim, she wrote your death. I haven't read it yet. I haven't had time. But it's supposed to be really bad, buddy. It's really bad. Gruesome. It's an appropriate horror piece. Copyright of Battle Goddess. And by the way, Battle Goddess Productions is the name of all my freelancing stuff. Alright. It's okay if you don't have your ISBN numbers. That's a decision you'll end up having to make. Either you buy one from, God, what's the name of that site? Look it up. If there's only one site that sells them, and sometimes they're on sale, sometimes they're not. But beware that when you buy ISBN numbers, you're going to need one for your paperback, one for Nook, one for Smashwords, and one for Kindle, depending who your vendors are. For instance, I'm KDP, Createspace, Smashwords, so I always need 3. Because Smashwords pushes if you format correctly, it pushes over to Barnes and Nobles and Nook for me, and then I don't have to worry about that 4th ISBN number. So it's only really a flesh wound. Oh, Moth. Python. So that gives us a look of how things are, and we can add other things here. So, you can add publisher, or I guess I've already listed publisher. So lead editor, you can also do interior design, which is your formatting, playing yourself, artist. Of course, this is going to be other people. But make sure you do an ode to these people, because it really means a lot to them. So, but you can list a lot of involvement in these areas. Dedication. So we have this nice font that we want to kind of echo. The key to consistency in a clean looking book is pick your fonts. And I cannot express how important it is to pay attention and don't try to like do this in one font and then totally change it to a different font. Have a font that you're going to echo as your title font. You can have a separate chapter header font, a body font, and usually that body font for what they're reading should be an elegant variant of what ends up using in copyright. So right now this is Garamond, which is a really, I like the italics on it. And if you click over here, this is Garamond again, but this is it not italicized. But like I said, this is centered with no indentation. Sometimes I like to do these areas as justified with a first line of 0.25 is my go-to for this. I think depending who you're with or what you're trying to do, you either do a drop caps here or you can do a half inch, but 2.5 always seems like a really nice bet. So if we notice, I've justified this, but if you look over here in acknowledgement, this is labeled the same as this. So when I highlight this, intro body is highlighted. When I click on this, intro body is still highlighted, but they're totally different, right? Well, I really like this one, and I want the rest to match. So you highlight it, right click it, update to match, and voila. Oh, it's not automatically updating. Ooh, you're being rotten. Embarrassing me. How dare you modify, automatically update. Sometimes you don't want it to automatically update either. It could be pretty obnoxious. So there we go. So the question is, why is this being a butt? Oh, there it goes. Garamond. So it lines up just slightly different. But if you notice, this started shifting. And if we go to about the author, now this is justified where it used to be centered. Justified helps to see clean lines. It's very noticeable, and I don't have any books. So if you notice, this book has nice justified lines. So it's just a clean cutoff on the right and left of the font. Without that, it looks weird. It looks so weird in a book. Yes, you can add images, and I will get to that in a second. So you're probably wondering, where can I find really awesome font? Because I don't have awesome font like this on my computer, which happens, which is sometimes the case. So I will show you. 1001freefonts.com is a really good source. And when you look up here, look, here's the magic words: sans serif, serif. So let's say, you know, your title and stuff, you want to be a serif font, or let's say you want something a little 28 days later ish. But you have to be careful which one of these you choose. Let's see. I think typewriter is what I was using. So if you look here, this one's labeled free. So this one you're safe with using. Donation where it usually requires you to leave a donation. Uh, Free for personal use means you may not want to use it for a book that you're selling. That's because at that point you're using it for commercial use, and you may have to purchase rights for this. Um, Public domain is usually open source and free for using for commercial use. Most of these, when you download them from 1001 Fonts, you can. They usually come with a notepad, notepad, and it tells you all the license and what you need to do if you do need to purchase commercial rights. So, and you'll see sometimes on these it has donate to designer, so you can encourage them to make more cool fonts and see what they're up to. Um, but yeah, someone had to create these, and painstakingly sort of link them all together. Now, for images, Pixabay.com is a good source. But the key is this is black and white interior. So you kind of want to look for black and white images or images you plan on converting into line art. So let's do line. So most of these images aren't going to cover or cut it. But like something like this one would work. But this is Shutterstock. So let's see. Art. Let's see. This would work because it's just a nice black. This would work. So, and the same thing as we did in the free fonts, Pixabay will list what the license is on these. So in this case, this is free for commercial use. This is a super nice one because it's a transparent one. So there's no risk of having a weird box show up. Download the picture. And boop. Don't save. We're using this one. So we will dump this bad boy in here. So you can dump them in here, but if you notice, it causes everything to go squirrely. And that's because you have to do a lot of formatting. The types of decisions you're going to have to make is this a background? If this is a background picture, then the way it interacts with the rest of your stuff, it should be behind the text. Oh, like where did my stuff go? I had it highlighted. Alright. Insert pictures. There we go. Bam. So like you could do in line with font, which will help you line it up and lock it in. But for full control for it goes, I throw it behind the font so I can reposition it. And it's much easier to design pages and like something like InDesign, because this is so not totally designed for it, but it is feasible. Come on. Click on picture. So, and then you can anchor it into spot. I believe the anchor's already on this. So, yeah, it definitely looks better shrunk. You can, you definitely can fade it. So, like I said, it's so obnoxious on Word when you have images, because once you place it in a certain spot, it gets a pain to try to click on it. So if you right click it, there should be format and auto shape or picture. And it's in here that there's different options. So no color, fills, all sorts of crazy stuff going on in here. Aspect ratio, all the options you were seeing earlier. But this one's about picture. And washout is a good way of fading it, so it's just a ghosted image in the background. Usually it does a pretty decent job, but the problem is it looks great on the screen like this, but when this hits the printer, all the printer has is literally black ink on the cream colored paper. So this will still show up as black as the font. Now granted, if I selected it to be colored interior, this will show up faded. So you have to keep that in mind. But the colored variant is going to cost far more than just the plain black ink on cream paper. So it's really a design decision and cost decision at that point. Let's see. I know I'm making all sorts of crazy sounds. So we want this header to be similar to the other font, which is Radio. Now, if you notice, this is all in caps. The cool thing about this, and this is a neat trick to keep yourself consistent instead of like trying to remember, is when you go into the font option, look, there it is, all caps. So you can actually define a header to always be in caps or not. You can also define it to be in all small caps, whatever you like to do. But in this case, I don't want it to be all caps. And then take this. This is my intro header font. Update the match, right? Well, earlier we went through and we predefined those, so instantly these changed, including this one didn't because I did it as the other piece, but so it's totally up to me. And the same thing, let's say I decide, you know what, I liked it all caps. You can right click on this, modify, hit format font, hit all caps, hit OK, OK, instantly changes any of these that weren't all caps, instantly gets shifted. So again, this expresses the importance of defining those styles, why we took the time to do that. Now, when I double click on the header, there's a new piece of information that shows. And if you notice, it says first page of section 1, first page of section 2, section 3. And depending where I'm at, this changes. So this blank page is section 8. And then you go over to this one, and it's section 9. But as the chapter continues, this is even odd pages. So those get defined a certain way. And there's a reason for that. And for now, we're going to shrink these blank pages. No. Why you gotta be so difficult? Okay. So we've decided we want to work on what our chapters look like. And again, we know we want to echo the same design. And of course, I'm going to do it based on an actual piece from Demonic Wildlife. Right away, I already know that this is set for all caps, so I'm going to turn that off. And I want this much bigger. Too big. So, if you notice, you have to highlight this and then click this. Otherwise, it's not going to work friendly. I want both of these to be centered. No. There we go. There we go. So this is going to be my header 1. Update the match. Now when I scroll out, I didn't go through here and define these. But now when I go through and start adding them in, there's a couple things that's happening. It instantly changes it to match this styling. And if you notice to my left, yes, you can see it. You can see that now I'm creating a list in my navigation pane. This will make your life so much easier when you're formatting for a couple of reasons. This is an anthology, so one of the things that we do when we're creating anthology is we're trying to find the right order of stories for the right feel for the readers, and I literally can drag and drop these, and it takes all of that section and dumps it appropriately without disrupting anything else I've done. So that's a pro of really digging in and using these styles. It makes the formatting much easier. So good. It's okay, Kim. I like your monkey story. It's a little bit gruesome, so it's towards the later half. Linda Hall's is great for giggles, and then as each story is read, it gets creepier and creepier. So it's going to be a fun read. It's going to have great artwork too. So depending how you want to do your chapter headers is totally up to you. So for example, this is my body text, right? There's a couple of things I already don't like about it. First off, I don't have my indent, which is oh my goodness. The husband's awake. The husband's awake. Yeah. It doesn't have an indent. The paragraphs aren't spaced. These are things that drive me crazy. So we're going to highlight a whole section here, and we're going to start tweaking this. First off, I want the font to be size 12. Next, I want to adjust the paragraph spacings. So right away, we know we want the first line to have a slight indent. And like I said, my favorite go-to is 25. But I also want at least a little bit of a space between the paragraphs. So it's more of this style. And another thing that you may want to do, and this is totally up to you, I know, and always white screens, is adjust the line spacing. So my go-to for this is a 1.15.
Surprise.
This breaks the font apart just enough that it's they're not blurring or on top of each other when the reader's reading. You just slide with the bookmark a little bit more casually, per se. Oh no, yeah, oh no, Kim, oh no. So once you get this set up how you like it, make sure you update to match. And now when I zoom out, you'll notice that the rest of this is matched to what I had edited at the beginning. And this totally changed on me. So if I do, I'm gonna define this as, do I have a header too? No. Demote. Now it's a heading too. We're gonna shrink it. And then redefine it. And I want spacing before, so it breaks it down. Voila. Same thing can go to for here. Let's say we don't want the font underneath bumping up so close, and because we know we're always going to have the same header layout, we can go ahead and say after this there should be at least a 18 drop. Of course you're falling asleep on me, Kim. I'm so boring. So, but let's say you want a cap strap. That is, you go to insert, drop cap, drop it, but you have to change your paragraph setting to get rid of the first line. So none, and then we can do it like so, and say that's too big for what you wanted, so no big deal. You undo, drop caps options, dropped, only 2 lines, bam. It's as easy as that. There's a button for it. There's no painstaking trying to figure out the right combo. Yeah, I was up pretty late the other night. Another thing you could do is change the font of it, if you really want to do that. But sometimes when you do that, you have to tweak the size of this to match, so it carries on and over. So, but that pretty much covers setting up your styles and how important it is. And like I said, you can easily make this a style. Body, open, first line style, right? So basically you would define the rest of this one way and the rest of it the other way. So take to modify, which totally threw this out of whack. But so now we have this nice look going on. And then where did it drop it at? Body, first line. And it's gonna be obnoxious about it. So we'll remove the drop caps for now, because that should be the last thing you do, is the drop caps. It's so annoying. Oh, that's fine. Okay. And pretty much once you define the style, highlight and drop. And just start going through defining them. And you see the spacing and everything shifts drastically. So you'll have to tweak it to match however you want it to be. But you'll see that everything starts spacing out a certain way. So it's a lot of fun. Keep it up. Go 10. Get some sleep, kid. I totally understand. Keep it up. Keep it up. Yeah, it's not, like I said at the beginning, it's very meticulous stuff, and it could be rather obnoxious and frustrating because every once in a while, if you don't label something a certain way, it just totally goes screwball, and it drives me crazy. The great thing about table of contents, though, is you can insert one. It's under references. You can literally just drop one in based on your heading, like so. And then you go back to your styles, and then it's a matter of just setting these back up. See, and here's another no-no. So I didn't even catch on it. You should always do your spacing, not with returns, because it messes up it has a risk of messing up. But if you do it as spacing, like after this we want 18 spacing, and then you define it, then you automatically have the spacing and it doesn't mess with anything. So it's crazy stuff. So alright, so we have this one set up. And if you notice, for some ungodly reason, there's all these returns. We don't want that. Instead, we want to tell it that we want, let's see, I think it's 108 is my go-to for this, because it's not center, but if you really think about it, our eyes gravitate slightly up from center as a focal point. So if these are always up slightly from center, it usually works out really, really well. Definitely that's something I learned in graphic design. And it definitely makes a difference, because if you start looking back into your books, you'll notice these are never center. And you'll also notice that if they are dropped down low, it's always above center. If it is center, it's usually more like a title page. And even then, on a title page like this, you will find that it's not as centered as they make it out to be. And of course, so this is a great example, and I'm glad this happened. So sometimes Windows connects some of your styles together, and it can be handy and annoying at the same time. So for instance, this shifted all funky. This isn't how we had it. And that's because when we open and modify, it's a style based off of normal, which means it added all the weird spacing and everything that we set up for the body of our story that we're reading just got applied to anything that is based on it. So you can come in here and hit no style, and then you can define that after you push enter, what should follow this. So there we go. Now it's back to normal. And bet you this is the same way. So let's highlight this, which is this one, modify, and again, now this one is based off the title, which we kind of want since it is supposed to be the same font and same job per se. But see, this one's spaced out too. This is not how we had this. And when we go into modify, you'll notice it's based off of normal, which is okay because it looks a lot cleaner spaced out that way. Like I said, spacing things make things a little crisper to read. So if you find things are shifting a lot, go in here, hit modify, and start seeing what's attached to where. And either do no style or connect it to one you do want it to apply to. Most of the time I go through here and I hit no style because once I set something, I don't want to have to go back and readjust and readjust and readjust a billion times. Because I jump. I don't have a consistent order of what I go to, if you haven't noticed. I see something, I scroll out, I see something, I dive back, I zoom back in. Just so you know the shortcut key. If you hold control and use the scrolly on the mouse, that's how I'm zooming in and out so fast on these pages. Okay, so we're still working on this chapter. So, for instance, I want to do some custom art. And I converted a drawing to go for this. That's a nice, just solid black and white image. And again, I want this to fall behind my text. I want to be able to move it where I see fit because I want it to go off the edges of the page. Aw, you can't see. Let's make it a little bigger. Oh, it's creepy, isn't it? Now, these edges might shift slightly when they actually cut and print. So it's always good to be kind of wary about anything that butts up to that edge. For instance, the spider, I want those sections to get cut off at the paper's edge. So I'm not really concerned with it too much. But I spaced it enough that it shouldn't cut out like the smiley face on the spider. And yes, that's actually my artwork. So now we have this really cool chapter header piece with artwork. Of course, let's modify this paragraph. What happened? See. I'll space these back out because otherwise it's gonna irk me so bad. Now there's two different ways I could do this. I can add spacing to that from the top, or I can highlight this and add spacing to the bottom and push things down. But it will constantly be shifting things until you get it just right. But the point is, it won't totally mess around with things so bad. So let's see here. So I want to make this where as my readers are reading the stories and they get past this initial page, and of course you see how the space on this side to the right of the text is much bigger than the space on the left. The bigger space implies where the book binding is going to be. So you always keep that in mind. And it should, between each and every page, it should be alternating. So the big piece, the binding side is on the right on this page, and then it's on the left on this page, and then the next page should be, and it should always continue. So like doing a side by side check, because I've gotten like some really long novels, and for some reason these margins suddenly start going screwy, because when you have over 100,000 word novel, it gets a little rough. But being able to visually see that gap and easily tell when one of these are not where they need to be, and it's usually after you've been playing with your headers that it starts doing screwy stuff like that. So we have headers, and the spider laughs is section 6. You should always have a first page header title and a new numbered section for each chapter heading page for several reasons. Okay, first off, we definitely don't want an author name or title at the top of this, because it looks much sharper and cleaner and brings attention to the title of the chapter, or helps visually announce that this is starting a next segment of the book, or the next story in an anthology. And it gives you space to do design, like add an image or a more fanciful looking chapter heading. Okay, it's totally up to you whether or not you want to even add numbers on the first page, but make sure that the different first page option is checked off. That's how you make sure that this page does its own thing compared to the rest of the chapter. Different odd and even pages is how we can add an author name on, and you'll see it says even page section 6, so we know we're in the same chapter. But this is an even page side, and then this is the odd page side, and we want to announce that they are reading The Spider Laughs. And because these are different even and odd pages, whatever changes you do down here to your numbers, even though you want them to look identical to each other all the way through, be careful, because you can accidentally throw all the odd pages off in a chapter, and just only one chapter because of its different sections, or all the even pages. So you have to kind of pay attention and double check that you haven't accidentally started something. Now, if you notice, when I click on different things are highlighting. Okay? When I click on this page, link to previous unhighlights for a very good reason. And it's this reason right here. Because in this, acknowledgements is listed with letters, just like in your textbooks at home. You can also just flat out delete that and just have no page numbers at all for any of this opening credit stuff. That's totally up to you. Everyone does this part different. If you want to save yourself a huge headache, just don't do any page numbers or title heading except for here. And like I said, again, first page header, and when you click this, it's a different first page. So this is the first chapter after all our intro stuff. So this isn't linked to previous. This shows linked to previous, but we can unlink it and it's not going to do any harm to anything. And that totally detaches our chapters from our beginning intro stuff. So it's a little safer to do that. just in case you do end up going back and deciding you want to fiddle with this for some strange reason. So we added Linda Hall here, and if you look now, all those pages to the left have Linda Hall. All my even pages will be the same font, same header. All my odd pages will have the spider laughs. And then as we cross into the next chapter, which is now labeled section 7, first page header, and we highlight this, there's nothing. And we highlight this, and it's still continuing to count the pages, but it's been delinked from the chapter before. And like I said, it's totally up to you if you want to change this. I usually do. So if we notice, and this is the headache about headers and footers, Linda Hall and the spider laughs. Linda Hall doesn't show up here, but the spider laughs shows up here. And this is because I need to unlink it from section 6. So we want everything to stand alone. So I highlight this header, and I make sure this is no longer highlighted. I do want my numbers to continue, so I'm not going to worry about that, but it's unlinked from previous. Now when I delete this, and of course you have to do it because everything's different. So you have a first page, an even page, and an odd page that you have to edit at the beginning of every chapter when you set it up this way. It sounds tedious and obnoxious, and it is. Don't fool yourself. But it's, as you get the hang of it, or you finally get one totally set up and formatted the way you like to have your books or for that series, after that is plug and play. So for example, the Cedric series, I've got 3 books out. I meticulously, painstakingly set up Cedric, and now for Roma Santa and for Oracle, it's all about plug and play. I don't have to totally fret over my chapters and chapter headers and the sections because I've already broken those out, and I just have to paste in the new material. So once you do set up a formatted file, it gets easier, and the more you do it, the more it's like almost, it's almost, I guess this is why I like drinking coffee while I do it. It's almost like sitting down and reading the newspaper and just relaxing. But you can't get frustrated. So my first page is delinked. My odd page is unlinked. And now my even page is unlinked from my first chapter. So when I delete the header information from all 3 of those and scroll up, it doesn't delete it for my first chapter, and it changes it for the ones that follow. See, I know Ninja, this is another story. But you see how that happened? Because I have my styles pre-set up. When I typed this in, I knew it needed to be heading 2. And as you see, with each of these changes, you can see these. And I can collapse these where I just see the story, or I can keep them open so I can see the authors. But it keeps me organized. And let's say I decide I want to change these. I slide it, and look. Now the spider laughs is section 7. And now Ninja is section 6. And if you look, it wipes out the headers. So do your reorganizing before you start setting up headers. Headers and drop caps and footers, which I just clump as one. So your header and footers and your drop caps should always be the very last artistic thing that you do, because it can really, really, really be a pain in the butt if you have to start rearranging large sections, because it will undo all your efforts and you can make yourself kind of loopy because of it. So again, we make sure that's not linked, that's not linked, that's not linked. The title is Ninja. And again, the font's not the right font, so we hit home to bring back our style sheet. And header font to keep myself consistent. And then we can do Richard Whitworth. Header font. And now we have this nice clean one chapter followed by another chapter with authors on one side, story title on the other. And like I said, with each chapter you have to, like I said, this will be highlighted. You unlink your first page, your odd page, your even page, and then you can literally do a lot of name drops. And that's pretty much it. So it's a lot of hard work. So good luck to you guys. Yes, husband. I'm on Twitch. I'm live stream.
Oh.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Twitchers.
Hi, Twitchers. That's Tim's folding laundry, and I told him he should come over and fold my laundry.
Oh, absolutely.
And then Kim fell asleep on us. So, but I'm pretty much practicing stream and making sure I can hold a positive connection. But I can't run any games, but at least I can run Word and small applications right now.
I can get you a Game Boy, then you can play games on the side.
On the side, yeah. My Ethernet cable comes in tomorrow, and so does your phone case.
Cool.
So, yeah. So hopefully, maybe Tim, maybe, when Brass Color Games stuff starts launching and you guys start hounding me while playing games for the first time, we can stream that, because I'm going to direct connect into the modem. So, but hopefully you guys found this helpful. It's, like I said, it's very tedious. It's very tedious. But once you get it going, it's well worth it. I will warn you that with body text, make sure that when you write your manuscript and you're doing your final edits and revisions on your stories, be consistent on your dialogue. Be consistent on your inner thoughts and narrative. So, for example, I do a lot of inner thoughts and mind communication in my Tattooed Angel series. So that's usually identified as italics. And it's so obnoxious. You will have to, and I have to, backtrack and double check that after you've applied all these changes, and this is like the last check that I painstakingly do because it's rough, is make sure that after all your edits and getting the look just right, that you've gone through and make sure that the italics haven't been undone. So you'll have to go through an italic, put them in italics. It doesn't seem to make a difference in how it undoes and does things if I define those moments as a style themselves or if I just highlight and italicize them. It just depends how the program decides to copy and paste it over, and it's a headache. Now, let's see, let me alter my view, and yeah, alright, so we got side by side pages, and this is something I was talking about at the beginning. So we know that when we open the cover of the book, this page with the lion head is the first thing that we're going to save, which is awesome. And then on the back side of that page, we have our copyrights listed, right? And of course, in this 2x2 zoom, my bigger margin is going to be on the left, and the small margin is going to be in the center, and another big margin on the far right. So we have front, back, front, and then let's say, well, crap, I don't want my table of contents to be on the back of the next page. This is very important. How important? You hit layout, you click on the very beginning line, and there's a section called breaks. There's page breaks, column breaks, text wrapping, next page, continuous, even, odd. Simply keep it simple. Keep it simple. You can get fancy and start getting used to all these. Next page is the one that matters. Because next page, and I'll show you. So we have section 3, section 4 with the table contents, and then section 5 with acknowledgements. When you do next page, which is in layouts, breaks, next page. And as you see, it tells you there's page breaks and then there's section breaks. You want to stick with section breaks when it comes to formatting, because otherwise, when this goes to the printer, or you save the PDF, or you decide to convert this for your Kindle version, it's gonna throw things horribly if you don't do it as next page. You'll get the weird spacings and all sorts of crazy stuff. So now that I did next page, note that this is section 3. Section 4 is a blank page, and section 5 is now my table of contents, and everything else has shifted over. Luckily, when you do this doesn't, for some ungodly reason, as you can see down here, it doesn't mess up your header and footer like the other thing does. Why? I don't know. But it's good to know that you can insert your blank pages and accommodate for front and back of pages without having to worry about reformatting stuff. So front, blank back of the page. A front page of table of contents. Again, I kind of want I want a blank page for the back of table of contents, and I want acknowledgements to be on that front right page. So again, next page, and again, I want my chapter to also start on that front page, and it carries it right over. Now, this is something I want you to notice that just happened. This happens all the time, especially when it comes to between your intro and your first chapter. Is now I have a blank page with a number, and when I hit delete the number, it just deleted this. So what you do, because this is section 9, this is section 8, you highlight this, and you notice all of a sudden this is linked again. You unlink it, and now when you delete that, it doesn't touch it. It's something that always happens, but that's just how it goes. Now granted, you may have noticed people doing section breaks a different way. So notice section 9 carries on through this chapter, right? You can hold control and return on the number pad. It's weird. So holding control and enter on the number pad suddenly creates this blank page. But notice that my header didn't shift like it did with all this, right? And it's still counting the pages. And that's because this is a page break. It doesn't break the section. See, this is the same as section 9. This is still section 9 down here. All it's done is made a page-wide spacing when you do a page break or a control return on the number pad or control enter on the number pad. So don't use it because it creates a weird gap. Like let's say you decide to drop. You're going to save this as a PDF for your Createspace paperback, but you can then go back and get rid of these section breaks and bump everything on continuous pages and save it as the DOCX or DOC and upload it for your Kindle, and it works awesome. The only caution I will give you is that pictures, good luck. You try very hard to anchor them. Programs like InDesign does a better job of keeping them where they need to be. It could be hit and miss, depending on what e-reader they're using. If it's on the newer ones, it's gotten a ton, so much better at handling those image files and putting them where they're supposed to be. But even when I insert, for example, let's say I want to insert a page break and I want to use a really, really, really fancy one. And this is a really good example. And of course, like I said, I do a lot of my own artwork. So let's see, Mr. Page Breaks, where are you? Line break, here we go. So I want to use this line break. There's a couple of ways we can handle this, or should handle this, should I say. So unlike this one, which is falling behind my text and doesn't disrupt my formatting, for one of these, you have to be a little bit more proactive with. First off, a page break image dropped in should be in line with the text, and it should be the one that will bump text on its own line. So for example, if I hit delete here, it acts as if it's overflow from that line. So I can hit return, it's on its own line, hit return again, this is on its own line. Secondly, because it's inline text, and we don't want to use any of the other ones, alignment, as you can see, there's no option in picture tools. I can't align it. And it may freak you out because you can't align it. What good is an image if you can't put it center? Because you've defined it as inline text, you now have to go over to your home and you center it using your justification. So all of this is justified, but this line with my page break should be center. Now you're probably looking at this and you're like, well, it's off. It's a little to the right or to the left. That can happen. And give me a second. One trick that I do is I shrink it slightly so it doesn't hit so hard as overlapping. But because it has, there's two things going on. So we want this centered. And secondly, we have to check our paragraph options and make sure that this is none. You don't want to indent this because it's going to throw it too hard to the right. That's why it looks like it's bumped over really far to the right. As soon as I delete that, it shifts to the center. Now, if you notice, all my font in this now has sort of it's all shifted to the right or to the left, that's fine, because this is the binding to the book. So like I was saying earlier, you can get to the point where you get really good at eyeing your content and knowing if it's correctly mirroring your margins. So for instance, we know the binding on this first page is going to be on the right, this one on the left, this one on the right, this one on the left, this one on the right, left, right. So my biggest gap should be the far left and right and the center. So when I start scrolling down, this is a tighter, this is wider, this is tighter, and these are wider on the ends. And you can kind of, at a glance, see if you've messed up or tweaked anything weirdly. But again, you want this inline text, and if you get the right formatting, that center with no indent, you can easily create a style and be like page break. That way, like when you start dropping them in, you can go back and highlight those lines and hit page break, so it drops out the indent, centers it, and it's in line how it should be. And then you can find clip art with this stuff. I go in and I just play around with Illustrator or Photoshop or GIMP, and I just make a design, and then I copy, paste, and flip to make that whole nice mirror image. This one I used A World of Their Own for the Alliance of World Builders anthology, and it turned out really nice. So, but let's see. Okay, so pretty much you're gonna save this when you're done, and in order to upload it into Createspace, and this is very important too because this is stuff that you guys aren't going to know offhand. Ironically, I didn't get any entries for demonic lions. I got demonic hummingbirds, demonic spiders, demonic fleas, coyotes, hummingbirds, what's another one? Snakes. And of course, my own inspiration for the whole idea was the manatee. So we've got some oddballs. Oh, rabbits. I'll have to decide what image I'm going to put here. But a lot of the artwork is going to be similar to this style and this style here. I just got to finish drawing it all. But you guys get a little sneak peek of The Spider Laughs by Linda Hall. What her cover is going to be like. But yes, as I was saying, you're going to do save as PDF. And yes, I know there's this one. I'm more comfortable with using this manner because I hit options, and notice even here when you go to PDF, options show up here. You're going to click this because this is very, 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 very important. This is how it defaults. So the first thing you want to do is make sure this is checked. What you're saying when you check this is, hey, when I upload this digitally someplace, I want them to be able to search for the headers and a navigation pane to come out as a PDF. You also want to make sure that this is selected. Bitmap text when fonts may not be embedded. So this is basically, hey, I used a special font. Be sure that if you can't connect the font to my file, that you turn it into an image so I don't lose the font. So that's basically what those are saying. So make sure that's selected and that's selected. If you want to go a step further, you drop down into tools, hit save options, and down here at the bottom, make sure embed fonts in the file is selected. And if you want to make sure that the file doesn't get too massive, let's say your system's having a hard time with it because not all of us are running on gaming computers or computers built for awesomeness, you can ask it to only embed the characters that you actually used. So let's say technically, somehow, magically, you only use 16 out of the 130 symbols and letters that come with that font. That's going to save a ton of space. And it makes it very, very difficult. I do not recommend selecting do not embed common system fonts because you never know when someone's not going to have one of the common system fonts. It happens because each manufacturer preloads differently from the other. So I've got like I think last I checked, I've got like an insane amount of font. Like we're talking over 1,000, maybe close to 1,500. And no, I don't have them all uploaded. I upload the ones I plan on using, and I upload them temporarily for a project, and then I put them away, and I do a copy and paste them into my project folder. So a good common practice that because I used this awesome font, and of course I'll save, because I used this Radio Newsman, I'll keep a copy of the font file itself with all my work files for this project. So if I ever decide to use it again, or on the next anthology I want to keep using that font as my title and header font, I can just upload it again if I lost it, because you'd be shocked at how many times you find an awesome font that's free someplace for commercial use, and a year goes by, 6 months, 3 years, and it's gone. And then there is no feasible way of finding the right font. Oh, and another reminder on your table of contents, because it's showing up. So if you notice, my table of contents has error bookmark not defined. Because I did the reference table of contents, this is actually a manageable piece of thing. There's update field, which as you see, when I did update field, just to undo, right click, update field, it updated my heading 1, my heading 2. But let's say, well, crap, I don't want it to show heading 2. There's a couple of ways you can do this. I usually just go through and I delete those. And then when I update the field, it changes. It now asks me, do I want to update the entire table or just the page numbers? If I do page numbers, it doesn't change anything that's here, but it does update what page these fell on if the formatting has shifted or anything's been added in. If I want to start with the most up-to-date variants, I can do entire table and it will drop those back in there. So do not forget to do this, because, and I'll show you because I forgot to do it. When you open the Adobe file, drum roll, and then we have this nice piece. We'll do this view. Of course, my poor computer says this hurts. It's too late. I'm almost done, folks, I promise. This is the last bit of advice and showing you something. Oh. There we go. I know computer. It's bedtime. Oh, it's gonna be a pain in the butt. Alright. As you can see, this PDF file is pretty heavy because it took a second to upload. But as you see, my fonts are all where they should be. I have a blank page because I'm accounting. Haha. So look. That's what happens if you don't update and double check your table of contents. But look, when I hit the spider laughs, it takes me to page 1, but nothing's there because I didn't update it. Now that I've fixed this, like I said, we'll go through and drop this down. And of course, we gotta exit this. Otherwise, it's gonna throw fit. Save as PDF. Yes, save over it. And we'll go down to the table of contents. Now when I click on it, it goes straight to it. Also, our option to convert, see? So by selecting that make bookmarks after the headings is what creates these. So people can jump around and discover more and get around. This also works as the table of contents drop down inside a Kindle. So that's why it's important to have those options selected. But that pretty much concludes all the advice and techniques I could possibly bestow you today, tonight, this evening on formatting for Paperback. Like I said, the great thing about this setup, you come back through and you start deleting these extra blank pages that accommodate for back of page, and you can then just save the DOC and upload it for your Kindle, which makes it convenient. So you take your time, get that paperback, the look you want, drop out your back page accountability, and put it side by side like so for your Kindle. You did very little to shifting needed. Like I said, just beware when you upload the Kindle what happens to these pictures. And like I said, this is anchored. Make sure it has the anchor icon. If it ever doesn't, let's see, I believe it's one of these sections has a, oh come on, where is it? Advanced lock anchor. So make sure this is selected. In case you didn't see where I found that, right click, format picture, hit layout, advanced layout, lock anchor, and hit OK and OK. So that way, and see it's an anchor with a little lock on it. You also can right click this, but sometimes it doesn't work. So, but pretty much now this won't shift very far, but the key is when you upload this on Kindle, it should keep the spider in the right spot. We'll test that out later. There'll be another episode of Twitch. But, well, thank you for visiting. Thank you for watching. This video will be saved, and I'll probably upload it on YouTube. I'll probably throw it over the Writer's Atelier so you guys can watch. But this is as comprehensive as I can get for formatting a paperback for you guys. So hopefully you learned something. Leave comments. Feel free to ask me questions on social media. Again, and I'll flip it over. My name is Valerie Willis. You can find me at willisauthor.com, where you can also find links to my blog and my books, free reads. Uh, on the blog, there's writing tips section, and you will find how to set up a Createspace file and a little bit about the formatting and screenshots there, and explaining the breakdown for most of this in a different manner. So, you guys have a great night, and thank you for visiting.